small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Andor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, let's get going. Rebel Force Radio, back with you all. Another week of the best in Star Wars talk, conversation, analysis, you name it. We do it here at Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force, and so much more. Great show coming at you this week. We're sort of collecting all of the information, the known information about the Shaun Levy Star Wars film on the heels of some new casting rumors that came about this week. A couple of names have been dropped. This is, of course, the contender, the number one contender to be the very next Star Wars film to go into production, and the very next Star Wars film that will likely be on the big screen after the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So all eyes on this. It seems the most viable project, so we're definitely following all of the details as they start to emerge, as this one looks real, gang. This one looks real. I think it is. Also, joining us in the Cantina, Todd Mills, Jefferson Starship road manager. You may recall from last week, we were talking about Jefferson Starship and their appearance on the Star Wars Holiday Special, as we were going through some great audio clips of Bruce Vilanch, legendary comedy writer Bruce Vilanch, and his memoir. And he was talking, of course, he was the writer of the Holiday Special. He was talking about Jefferson Starship and just all the wackiness there. And I was asking the question, was that song that they performed, was that written just for the Holiday Special? Were they just trying to put over their latest single release? Who knows? Maybe Todd knows. So we'll talk to Todd. Also, Tales of the Underworld, that was big news from last week. We've got a few little dribbles of new information about that. We'll be talking about it, including going into the RFR Vault and unearthing an old interview with a familiar voice. So all that and much more coming up here at Rebel Force Radio. Thank you all for hanging out with us for the next couple of hours. I think you will enjoy it, and I think you'll have a great time, as will we. And by we, I mean me. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Back for another round of Star Wars conversation and a few chuckles along the way, I'm sure. So we're really, right on the verge of Andor Season 2. And, man, I cannot wait for Andor Season 2. We're less than 2 weeks away. There's so much Star Wars stuff happening. Next week, you got Star Wars Celebration Plus on Disney Plus next Friday, a week from this Friday. Next Friday is going to be the premiere of Light and Magic Season 2, the documentary series about industrial light and magic. There's going to be a lot of cool prequel stuff in this upcoming season, I believe. And that was all shot at the Kersner Optical Studios in Northern California there. And it was called 3210 Studios, if you remember, because once ILM moved out of there, a few employees of ILM decided to keep the physical effects factory alive and continue the tradition. And so they created 3210. Everything was shot there. This particular season is going to be directed by Joe Johnston, and it's going to be great. So we have Star Wars Celebration Japan next week, along with Light and Magic. Then the following week, we have the premiere, 3-episode premiere of Andor Season 2. It's going to be like a mini movie, 2.5 hours long, and it's going to blow our minds. Then the day after that, we're going to have the debut of the Andor Season 2 RFR After Show live. And we expect phone calls from all of you guys we'll be taking calls after we provide our breakdowns of the 3 episodes that'll launch the arc. It's going to be a story arc, Jason. Remember back to those old days of the Clone Wars when we would evaluate the arcs, the story arcs.
Yeah. These are a little longer. I mean, these are no 90-minute arcs. Like you said, these are all averaging at about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's what it's going to come down to. So we're going to be very busy on Tuesday nights here at RFR Central, and Star Wars fans around the globe will all be tuning in. So those will be big events Tuesday nights for the next month. That's going to be amazing. Then after that, the weekend following the premiere of Andor, we're going to have Revenge of the Sith back in theaters. So I'm really excited about that because I haven't seen Revenge of the Sith in the theater since 2005. And theater technology has advanced. It's at least 20 years more advanced than it was back in 2005, if my math is correct. But I mean, still, the leaps and bounds of theatrical motion picture viewing is just gone crazy as far as the technology goes. And so we're hoping to see it in our local Dolby Theater, which really provides like concert level sound.
I was thinking about these re-releases, Jim, and the one that just I can't believe we haven't seen, though something tells me in about 2 years we'll probably see a re-release. But A New Hope has not been on screens for a long time. I mean, you'll occasionally get a small theater that runs it, but I'm talking about like these big re-releases. Empire's received a couple. Jedi just got one for its the latest anniversary. We've got Revenge of the Sith. The Phantom Menace was also re-released. Rogue One has received re-releases. But the original 1977 Episode 4, A New Hope, in theaters, it's been a long time.
It has been. And you know, who knows what kind of tweaks George is going to make to it the next time it hits the theaters. I guarantee it's going to be some kind of adjustment of that Greedo versus Han scene yet again. I think George is kind of trolling us. I think he's trolling us. He's trolling us with those. Hey, folks, fans, don't kid yourself. There are many instances over the years of George Lucas trolling us. He does it for laughs. So strap in. A lot of times, the McClunky is a perfect example. Yeah, for the yucks. Or like he'll be giving an interview and he'll be like, yeah, so when the rebels were on the planet Hoth. Like, Hoth? Who's pronouncing it Hoth? You cannot pronounce Hoth. It just doesn't work that way.
He slips in a Han Solo here every once in a while, too.
Well, that's okay. That's because Billy D does it. So if Billy D does it, it's cool.
I think Billy D does it because George did it. That's my theory.
That's possible.
Billy D's a very observant guy. He knew that George was top dog when it came to the world of Star Wars. And if it was good enough for George, it was going to be good enough for Billy D.
All right, the one I can never understand, though, and George has done this many, many times in interviews, he refuses to call it a lightsaber and always says laser sword. He's been doing that forever. And listen, The Last Jedi, it wasn't exactly the ideal Star Wars motion picture experience for a lot of fans. But Luke calls it a laser sword in that film, and I heard a lot of fans attacking The Last Jedi for that moment in particular. Who calls it a laser sword? What is Rian Johnson, a flippin' fool? But the amount of times George Lucas has called it a laser sword in interviews, it was a laser sword in earlier drafts of Star Wars. I think it was the third draft when the term lightsaber actually was birthed. But George still uses it in interviews. He made Anakin Skywalker say it in The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
What about your laser sword? You're a Jedi.
I saw your laser sword.
But in that case, you can forgive a young, poor Tatooine slave boy for calling it a laser sword because he doesn't understand the technical vernacular that is placed on such a very advanced piece of weaponry.
Yes.
He calls it a laser sword.
Your father's
he's never been schooled.
Light saber.
And
Alec Guinness is very, very precise in the way he says, your father's light saber.
Yeah. Well, they cut a line out. I don't know if you know this, but in the original version of Star Wars, Obi-Wan said, your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough. And he hands Luke the lightsaber, and Luke goes, wow, a laser sword. And he goes, your father's lightsaber.
Oh, so he was correcting him.
Yeah. George felt that was a little too intense.
A little heavy-handed, huh?
He didn't think fans of the late 70s, mid to late 70s, were really going to dig on that kind of authority coming from Obi-Wan. Yeah. Obi-Wan had to be more of like, kind of a groovy sort of hippie guru sort of.
Yeah, man.
Guy. Yeah. Man, that's
your father's lightsaber. It's far out, you might say.
Dig it, Luke. Dig it.
He's got like the love beads around,
I can see it.
Oh, yeah.
That's such an easy thing to conjure up mentally, is that vision right there with the big peace symbol on it, the big peace symbol pendant. You'll have to excuse me, Luke, while I burn some incense. And let's make this scene real groovy, baby.
All right.
Groovy, baby. You can't say groovy, baby. That's Austin Powers.
That's the Austin Powers zone set. All right, let's move on. I want to know, Jim, last week we were talking about action figures and things, and you had mentioned that you had an Aura Singh action figure that disappeared, and you have been in the process of moving your whole collection from one floor of the house to another floor of the house. And I was just saying that, well, maybe it just got lost in the move. And you were like, well, I don't know. I don't want to point any fingers, but, I've had some people over here and, who knows? But any luck?
Luck? Well, who identifying the thief who stole from me, someone who I considered a friend? No, nothing to see here, folks. The thing was knocked over on one of the back rows. So I have reacquired.
Wait a minute, it was still on the shelf.
It was on the shelf the whole time.
Well, that's good news. I'm glad to hear
it's good news. It still doesn't explain the missing vintage Lando General from Return of the Jedi, Power of the Force action figure. And those are obviously more rare, more sought after, and each one of them are worth $200 to $300.
One of the last 17.
Yeah. Those things are, and I found them in 1985 at a random stop at a toy store with a friend of mine who was giving me a ride home from school and said, do you mind if I stop here to pick up a gift for my nephew? It's his birthday this week. And I said, I don't care. I'm just grateful for the ride home. And I went in with him. And I saw this bin of Power of the Force action figures, the ones with the coin, the very last line of action figures produced by Kenner for the original trilogy. And they were filling up this bin, and they were 50 cents a piece. And I hadn't thought about buying a Star Wars. I didn't buy any Star Wars action figures when Return of the Jedi came out because I was a freshman in high school, and I felt like I had outgrown it. But the Lando General is still missing, but that's been missing for a number of years now. But I just want everyone to know the Aura Singh action figure has been found. I was receiving some correspondence from people distraught that trust was broken in my home. And, I do bring in people who I believe are friends of mine, anybody who comes into my house, the level of trust and friendship is on a very high level, and to think that somebody would take a silly Aura Singh action figure that probably isn't worth any money at all. I mean, to march out of my house with that thing, and you must be a real desperate kind of dude.
You know what Steve Sansweet says? It's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Well, that's what Steve Sansweet always said.
Yeah.
That's what he always said. And D. Martin Myatt always said, collect to collect. Don't concern yourself with worth. Collect to collect. That's your priority, son.
That's what I do.
I saw him getting somebody's face about that at Star Wars Celebration Japan 2008.
Oh, no.
Thought I'd have to step in between. That's how serious the man is.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest Star Wars collectors around. And his books are awesome. D. Martin Myatt.
I tell you,
Dave to his friends.
If your collection is stressing you out, you're doing something wrong. And you got to just take stock and say, look, is this giving me joy? You know? And I don't buy anything that, or I shouldn't say that. I do buy a lot, but I don't keep anything unless it really gives me joy, gives me that tug on the old nostalgia strings. And my problem is there's too much that gives me joy because I just love it. I love the toys. I love the plastic. And I
love the plastic. You sound like somebody who has like a problem with impulse shopping. You know, I love the plastic. Charge it.
Well, you know, I kind of resemble that remark because a lot of what I buy is on impulse. But
Jason, how did we end up with a 130-foot plasma screen in the family room? Oh, what is that? Not big enough? Charge it.
Charge it. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that Aura Singh is where she belongs.
Nothing to see here. I just want to say that because I do bring people in here and stuff, and I don't want people thinking that I'm accusing anyone of anything. It was my fault. The figure had fallen over behind some other figures. You know, who knew?
Hey, did we mention the live stream next weekend, right? No regular RFR next week.
I don't think we really talked about it in such certain terms. And I don't think you or I have talked about it in such certain terms. We got the date locked down. We're going to do a Star Wars Celebration Japan, not wrap up, but review, which will be happening. Well, it's not quite an after show because Star Wars Celebration Japan will still have one more day to go.
That is true.
So
it does have the
I wanted it to
schedule.
be the after show, but we thought, doing a live stream on Easter Sunday was lame. It's also 422, so whatever your religion is.
And it's WrestleMania weekend. Come on,
it's WrestleMania weekend. There's so many things. It's a very busy weekend. The resurrection of Christ. A new champion is going to get the belt. I mean, there's so many
Cody
things.
Rhodes and John Cena. Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. But one thing that is going to happen, we're going to do the RFR live stream on YouTube on Saturday, April 19th in the afternoon. I'm thinking noon Central. That's 1 p.m. Eastern. Does that work for you, Jason?
Works great for me.
Yes.
Works great for me.
All right. We'll get Tyler on the phones. We'll break down all the big news, all the reveals coming on the Star Wars Celebration Japan. We anticipate the biggest news will have been dropped by the time we do the live stream. And so we want you to join us. YouTube.com/Rebel Force Radio, Saturday, April 19th, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. YouTube will be the place to be to hear our reactions to all the news coming out of Japan. So there'll be no weekly RFR on Friday next week in your feed like you typically expect, unless like some gigantic news dropped. We aren't going to stop the presses, and it's unlikely any news will drop prior to Star Wars Celebration Japan because Lucasfilm is going to be saving all of that for Star Wars Celebration Japan. No weekly RFR on Friday, but join us next weekend on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern for RFR Live as we cover all the news coming out of Star Wars Celebration Japan. Babu Freak Barry Harmon's going to be out there, and he promises me he's going to be sending me video coverage of the event throughout the weekend. So we'll pick
a stringer out there.
Yeah, we'll put together some highlights of Barry's boots on the ground coverage in the land of the rising sun. And it's going to be awesome. So, and of course, people always ask, is this show going to be available as a podcast? Yeah, we'll release it as an audio podcast on all the podcasters, on RFR website, everywhere, launching later that day. So, early evening on Saturday. Yeah.
We'll get it out there. There's so much going on. All right, well, let's check in with some of our listeners here out in the world of Rebel Force Radio and our listener mail.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply. Hey guys, this is Todd from Columbus. I was just calling in about the new trailer for Tales of the Underworld. I'm sure that's going to be a hot topic. It looks good, but I think I'm probably, like a lot of other fans, a little disappointed that we're getting another mini-series of shorts where, I think we would love to see a new animated series. These shorts just aren't enough. I think we want more. Whether it's a series that is in the underworld or a series shortly after Return of the Jedi, something. These shorts just aren't quite doing it for us. And it'd be great to see, something a little more substantial. I think these would be, we expect these to be maybe backdoor pilots, and it's like a one and done. We don't get anything after these shorts. I think we want more. Curious to hear your take. Thanks, guys.
Oh, I'll always take more Star Wars. And I agree that it's, especially in the instance of the Count Dooku story from Tales of the Jedi, we got to see young Qui-Gon. That one really made me want more. Like, now, look, can we get a series in this era? Ahsoka, I love Ahsoka, but my boots are pretty full on Ahsoka these days. So
of course she faced off an Inquisitor, another time, a dozen Inquisitor.
So true.
It's kind of becoming cliche at this point, really, with the Inquisitors.
Morgan Elsbeth, it was a story that I didn't really realize that I wanted to see. It was interesting, and I do.
But you did like it.
I did like it. Yeah, I did like it. Like I said, it was something I didn't know I was going to like it until I liked it. I didn't know I needed it until I saw it. I really enjoyed the Barasafi story. If you're going to try to make the Inquisitors interesting, we got to know more about where they came from, who they really are. And I thought that story was very, very cool. I loved looking inside and how they trained and Vader's relationship with them. That one left me wanting more. So out of the 4 stories, 2 have left me wanting more. Looking at a Asajj Ventress story and a Cad Bane story, again, 2 great characters. I don't anticipate saying, give me this spinoff. I hope this is a backdoor pilot for an Asajj Ventress show or a Cad Bane show. I don't see it going that way for me personally, but I'll take what I can get. It's not doing any harm. And most of the time, I think they tell a pretty interesting story in the little, 20 minutes it usually comes out to about per story. So, yeah, I don't know. If you're going to release them all at once, which I'm glad they do, I don't know why they do these shorts. Why don't they just make a half-hour episode about this character or that character? The shorts format is odd unless you're going to release them that way.
I think there is a method to the madness. I think that these tales of little mini-series were just there to make sure Lucasfilm Animation keeps their chops up. They use the technology to improve on existing models from the Clone Wars and existing animation assets and to improve them for when the next big series drops. Now, let's not forget the Bad Batch wrapped its 3-season run up just last year. So we're really just on the very verge of getting another fully fleshed out weekly Star Wars animated series from Lucasfilm Animation. Of course, the rumors we've been hearing is that there will be a show where the main plot is Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Voss. They rescue Darth Maul's 15-year-old nephew, Day, from the Night Brothers and Crimson Dawn, and the fallout from all of that. So Day must be a Night Brother. He's described as very Damian Wayne. All right. Who's Damian Wayne? Do we know who Damian
Bruce
Wayne
Wayne's
is?
son.
Is that? Oh, so it's a fictional reference. I thought that was a reference to an actor.
No, it's Damian Wayne is, I'm not even going to begin to claim that I know much about the character, but I know enough to know that he's Bruce Wayne's
Oh, okay.
son.
Well, I'm glad that, because I thought it was an actor. I was like, Damian Wayne. So, but that's how out of touch I've been with the Batman series for a while. You know, I try to keep my head above water with that. Just recently, I was telling Jason, I'm watching Return to the Batcave on YouTube, which features an old Adam West and an old Burt Ward on a Batman and Robin adventure. I think it was some TV movie that came out in 2004. Jason, of course, has the Blu-ray. I never heard of it until I stumbled across it on YouTube. So Damon Wayne, that's just
So
Damian Wayne. See how
he's the son of Bruce Wayne and Jim. Remember when Bruce or Batman got with Talia? Ra's
I thought
al
you were going to say
Ghul's
Selena
daughter?
Kyle, Talia, huh?
Talia.
Who's Talia?
Ra's al Ghul's daughter.
Oh yes, and I don't blame him one bit. Let's make a family.
Damien is their love child.
Yeah, baby. So this particular animation project will have tie-ins to other Star Wars properties like Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars Outlaws, and of course, Solo, a Star Wars story, which you have to have tie-ins to because there's loose threads from Solo.
Many.
Darth Maul's sudden appearance. And it will fill in the blanks between Clone Wars and Rebels for the criminal underworld and Maul specifically. I'm sure they'll be picking away at some of the story ideas that were developed for the video game 1313 and the Star Wars Underworld television show that George Lucas was developing with Rick McCallum and Ronald D. Moore. As a matter of fact, they're considering calling this animated series Star Wars Underworlds. Multiple, plural.
Do you think this rumor is true? Do you think they're really working on this series?
You know, I don't know what to think of this, Jason, but I think it's a lot of fun. And,
it is a lot of fun.
There has to be something on the horizon for Lucasfilm Animation as far as Star Wars goes. This rumor says that the show's going to premiere in August, and it'll be 16 episodes long. That part of it all, I don't know, but I mean, really, I think a lot of answers will be to these questions will be revealed at Star Wars Celebration Japan, especially with that Lucasfilm 20th anniversary panel, where they promised to reveal info about the future of Star Wars animation.
Yeah, the Lucasfilm Animation 20th. It's crazy to think that they've been around that long, but then again, I mean, Clone Wars. They started production on Clone Wars not too long after Revenge of the Sith. Left theaters
late 2004. They started. That's really when Lucasfilm Animation was established, and so here we are, 20 years later, and Dave Filoni is still there, and the machine is still. Dave Filoni's there. George Lucas isn't, but Dave is still there, and the machine is still moving along. And a lot of Dave Filoni's vision is very apparent in the Tales of miniseries like Tales of the Underworld. These are Dave Filoni specialty characters, Cad Bane and Asajj Ventress. This is Filoniverse stuff, hardcore. And Dave feels like their stories need to be told. There need to be loose threads tied up. And also, this might be providing us with a launching pad for something new. Like you said, Jason, an Asajj Ventress animated series. And judging by some of these rumors about Quinlan Voss, Asajj Ventress, and Darth Maul being the focus of a new animated series, I say bring it on. Let's quit, trying to feel our way around in the dark and get some characters that have some substance and history in the realm of Star Wars and build upon that. I think this is actually pretty good stuff. I know there's been some pushback. I know some people are frustrated with the shorts format and stuff. But again, I think this is providing some sense of foundation for future Star Wars animation. So fingers crossed I'm right. If not, we'll end up with Star Wars Resistance Season 3.
Yeah.
And I don't know who wants that.
That concerns me about these rumors is that it's so close to what was eventually announced within a few days with these rumors breaking, the Tales of the Underworld, this idea of a Star Wars Underworlds proper animated series, that it just feels like maybe the wires got crossed, maybe it was a game of telephone, and what they were really hearing about was the Tales of, and not this. I want to believe that it's a full-blown series, and maybe this is some sort of a pilot. It's possible.
We'll know in May if the Asajj Ventress clips include Darth Maul's nephew, who may be this youth with the blue lightsaber. Could that possibly? No, how could that be Darth Maul's nephew? He doesn't have the horns on his head.
He's not a Zabrak.
He's not
from Dathomir.
There have been some fan speculation saying that this is Jadna Nawud we're seeing in these clips. But from what we understand, Jad never really held a lightsaber before. We see him hold one in the Skeleton Crew. So what's up with that?
Well, and he saw his master murdered before his very eyes.
Yeah.
And so I suppose that could be the ultimate fate of Asajj Ventress, the canonical fate.
Ooh. Could Asajj have been Jad's, master? I mean,
I think that's the term he used, right?
Well, does he say master? It's just someone, he met someone who took him, this master saw something in Jad, is what Jad was conveying. He saw something, saw potential in me. And, this is the first time in his life anyone ever paid attention to him. It
was a situationship. There was nothing formal.
A situationship, right. Hard to say. It was a master Padawan type of situation, but it was someone who recognized Force potential within Jad and took it upon him or herself to offer a little bit of guidance. That doesn't necessarily create a master Padawan, a formal master Padawan relationship. It just doesn't, especially post Order 66.
And I believe we talked about it on the show after the final episode aired. Jude Law talked about how he deliberately played it as if he'd never really held a lightsaber to any degree, or he had no lightsaber skills. So there's no formality to the training. I think that he was trained by a, dare I say, Bokeen Jedi.
Oh, let's not go back to Bokeen. That conversation just exhausted me, and now I have all these people on Patreon going, "Oh, next Q&A, I'm going Bokeen all the way with Jimmy Mack." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't know if I can pull up the energy to deal with that." But all right, Suds already did a Q&A with me, and he started holding my feet to the fire about Bokeen Jedi.
Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh no, not again."
Yeah, the fact
is this happening? What did I do to deserve this?
I think Bokeen Jedi is largely a fan-constructed concept, just based on few little threads here and there. I don't think it's been fleshed out to any significant degree. So
it was kind of just a line from Balin's Skull in Ahsoka Season 1, where he mentioned he mentioned the term Bokeen Jedi and said that they were trained after the fall of the Jedi Order.
Something along those lines. It's all in a previous episode of RFR. There's a listener question about the Bokeen Jedi, and we get into it. But yeah, sometimes fans have a tendency, I suppose I've done it too, but where you present your own theory as fact, as gospel truth. And it's not. It's just your own theory, and these things haven't officially been decided, within canon.
Rebel Force Radio. Rebel Force Radio. Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, speaking of Tales of the Underworld, we did get some news about that. And we're going to see a familiar face and hear a familiar voice. And that Admiral Akbar is going to show up in this Tales of the Underworld, voiced by Art Butler. And Jim, just thinking about Cad Bane, thinking about Asajj Ventress, thinking about the seedy underworld of the galaxy far, far away. Where in the world does Admiral Akbar fit in any of this? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to have a big role, but I'm just like, well, what's the great Admiral doing in this, in the underworld?
That's a good question. And I mean, number one, I saw the name Art Butler. Art with 2 T's, by the way, which I think is bold and awesome to go by Art, but 2 T's. And I saw his name in the credit list for the upcoming Tales of the Underworld. And at first I'm like, wow, that name rings really familiar. I think he played the Prince Lee Char from season 4 of the Clone Wars, the battle between the Quarren and the Mon Cal that opened up season 4. It was a 3-episode launch. I went to the red carpet premiere. It was at the Long Beach Aquarium in their 4D theater. So you can imagine we were getting a lot of water splashed into our face as we were sitting there watching the world premiere of these 3 episodes. And I was surrounded by Star Wars royalty. Dwayne Dunham and Ahmed Best were sitting right behind me. Christian Taylor, who was a Clone Wars writer, was sitting right next to me. And the entire cast of the Clone Wars was filling up the theater. It was awesome, an awesome event. So I was like, well, of course, Art Butler, he was King Lee Char. They're bringing back that character? Why? No, I was wrong. As I looked it up, I was like, ooh, he played Captain Akbar in those episodes. So guess what? The return of Akbar is upon us, finally. And Art Butler, after voicing Akbar in those 3 episodes of the Clone Wars back in 2011, hasn't done any work on Star Wars since then. And so now he returns to the franchise 14 years later in Tales of the Underworld. But why is the name Art Butler jumping out at me like with big, bold, flashing lights? Well, it's because I interviewed him back in 2011 at the Clone Wars Season 4 premiere. Hanging out on the red carpet with Art Butler. This man is the voice of Captain Akbar.
Captain Akbar, yes.
Captain Akbar, Season 4 of Star Wars The Clone Wars.
It's great. This is amazing. This whole experience is incredible.
And so a lot of people have been wondering, this is a big mystery that's been solved. Who is going to be the voice of Captain Akbar? This man right here.
That's me. I get to be Captain Akbar, not an admiral just yet.
Not yet. And so what can you tell us about the character of Akbar at this phase in his military career?
He is leading his people big time. I mean, he really, he wants to make the prince the king, and that's sort of his main mission. And then, as you'll see, there's a lot of other stuff going on that he has to sort of handle.
And do you say the line, "It's a trap"?
I do not get to say it's a trap.
No.
There's another line that's very sort of similar that you'll see.
Oh, yeah. Similar.
It's similar.
Okay.
Similar in idea, where it's okay. We're kind of stating the obvious, and it's you'll see.
I, for one, am glad that you're not saying the "it's a trap."
Right.
Line.
Exactly. Yeah, I was glad I didn't have to say that either.
It was just a line in Return of the Jedi,
right.
And for the longest time, no one really thought about it until Robot Chicken started exploiting.
Right.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea how big it got. What a meme it became, But it is out there. It's a trap, I guess.
It's a trap. There we go. We just heard it right there.
It's a trap. Yeah.
And how much studying did you do of the Akbar character in Return of the Jedi to nail the voice?
What was weird, it was like when I got the audition, I remember seeing him in the movie, and it kind of came to me. I mean, I used the Force, really, I think. It came pretty quickly, and I was like, wow. I did study it a lot, but, once I got the script and was looking at it, I was like, just sort of hearing it in my head, and then once I vocalized it and then watched the movie, I was like, okay, I'm pretty...
Whoop, there it is.
Yeah, whoop, there it is, exactly.
Did you actually audition for the role of Akbar?
I did, yeah. Just like all the other voiceover roles, and got lucky with this one, really lucky.
Yeah, do you think there was a big turnout for people auditioning for that role?
Yeah, I think, quite a few people did. It was funny, Dave was saying there was a lot of people that didn't do anything. Like when they got the audition, it's like, okay, this is Akbar, he's from the movie, and there was a lot of people that were just reading the lines like normal. It's like, this is Akbar, come on, be Akbar, come on, So that was an interesting turnout for that.
Yeah, so you got to turn on your amphibian, your inner amphibian.
Yes, you do.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
There it is. It's a trap. I did. I had to say it.
You got to say it.
You got to say it.
Because you know that people are going to constantly be asking you to say that line, even though you didn't say it in the cartoon.
Well, it is a trap. And, yeah, I'm sucked into it. So.
The role itself is a trap.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so
nice
much.
meeting you.
What kind of a lazy voice actor shows up to an audition to play Admiral Akbar and they just play it straight? They don't do the voice. They're not doing. I can't believe what I just heard.
Well, he was clearly doing the voice when he spoke to me.
No.
Like
He's talking about Dave told him that people showed up at the audition not doing any kind of an Akbar. Like, come on. What you're gonna do your own version? No. I'm not gonna just do what the guy in the movie that billions of people saw. I'm gonna find my own Akbar. Do it my way.
It's a trap. You know, you get all these different versions, like very, very like dramatic, or like, you know, very like goth. It's a trap. Yeah. Or, you know, there's all sort of different versions you can go with it. Very flamboyant. It's a trap. You know, there's all sort of different ways you can go about
But
this.
there's only one way to really do it. We all know that.
Oh, I thought you were going to hit the actual drop of Akbar saying.
Oh, that would have been a great cue, wouldn't it?
I saw you reaching for something.
Yeah,
it was probably your beverage.
Yeah, I was reaching for a beverage. You know what? I don't have It's a Trap on the on the soundboard because it's become such a cliche.
It sure has.
I prefer things that are just a little bit more I don't know.
What?
Like that, you know?
Well, you never know what happens with the audio podcast after I put my finger all over it. You know, you never know. You might be hearing the actual It's a Trap right now.
It's a trap.
There, see? It happened. Yeah. So that's the
fair.
Sorry, Luke. It isn't fair. Sorry, whiner. But editing rules and can control everything. So Art Butler, what a nice guy. What a great guy. And he's back after all this time, 14 years later. It's very impressive to me that Art is returning to Star Wars. And we're assuming it's the Admiral Akbar role because that's the only voiceover he did for Star Wars. He never did any video games or appeared in other Star Wars animated shows. But Akbar is a role that he established as owning. If you look at Star Wars Season 4, The Clone Wars, with that great Mon Cal underwater war that occurs, the first arc of Season 4. It was great. And Art was a real nice guy to hang with on the red carpet and throughout the day. And I'm excited that he's returning as Akbar. And hey, Art, if you're listening, drop us an email, and we'd love to talk to you again. Do a follow-up interview after our epic conversation there at Long Beach in 2011. I mean, the buzz about that is still happening now, at least here on the show.
Yeah.
But what a good guy. So I'm looking forward to, we haven't heard anybody say anything about Admiral Akbar in the Tales of the Underworld show.
Yeah.
How would Akbar fit into all of that?
I don't know.
You know, he is an emerging character during the Clone Wars. He's still very much a local celebrity on Mon Cala. He's not really known galaxy-wide as the guy who's going to be leading the Rebel fleet against the Death Star 2 in Return of the Jedi, you know? I mean, I don't even think the Mon Cala were on the galactic scene, on the mainstream galactic scene, even during A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. We see no Mon Cala. We don't see them until the Return of the Jedi. And that's when the Rebel fleet really builds because they are known as great ship makers, the Mon Cals, and they explore the galaxy. So Admiral Akbar, Captain Akbar, during the time of the Clone Wars, he obviously grows in as far as his military status and rank is concerned, and his profile obviously grows very high. The backstory on Akbar, according to the oldest expanded universe, was that he was a slave to none other than Grand Moff Tarkin himself. He served as Grand Moff Tarkin's personal slave and somehow escaped the Empire, escaped slavery, and immediately rallied his Mon Cal troops and segued into the rebellion against the Galactic Empire and was there with a fleet of ships to fight against the Death Star too. But prior to that, Admiral Akbar was not a member of the organized Rebel Alliance. A lot of people think, oh, well, he just was always there. But he wasn't really visible until that final battle in Return of the Jedi. That's not true, according to the expanded universe. He was serving as a slave to Grand Moff Tarkin. And behind his back, he called Grand Moff Tarkin Grandma Tarkin, because that was the only sense of freedom he had back then.
I think you're making that part up. I think
that part I made up,
You've made up.
That part I did make up a little bit, but you can't prove me wrong.
Jimmy Mack headcanon appearing here.
No, call Timothy Zahn, man. He'll say, well, I can't prove that wrong. Call George Lucas. He'll be like, well, it's feasible. So let's just ride that road until Disney ruins it for us.
All right.
It's a trap!
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
We got news. News and rumors. The Shaun Levy film. Jim, everyone that we talk to on the inside is saying that this is it. This is the real deal. This is the next film that is going to go in front of cameras and the next film that is going to be released to cinemas following, of course, the Jon Favreau Mandalorian and Grogu movie. And we've got 2 casting rumors that appeared this week. And one of them is actually a Star Wars alum. This was a big surprise. So starting off, Jodie Comer is the next one to be rumored. Now, Ryan Gosling was the main star that was being rumored to be anchoring this film. And we've heard that it was Ryan Gosling's interest in this that really fast-tracked this for Shaun Levy and made this very much a real next project for Lucasfilm. And now joining, allegedly, rumors are saying Jodie Comer. Now, I don't know much about Jodie other than the fact that we did see her in Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, as Rey's mom.
That's right.
I think that's really just it. She's just Rey's mother. I don't think there's any name to this character, either in universe or in the expanded universe.
Yeah, it's like from Welcome Back, Kotter. Signed, Epstein's mother. Epstein's mother never had a name. She was just Epstein's mother. So this is signed Rey's mother. She doesn't have a name.
So, but Jodie has done some other things. Killing Eve, which was a very highly acclaimed British television program. Also, The Last Duel, which was Ridley Scott's film from 2021. But we all know her as Rey's mom. I really don't know, she's a British actress, I believe. So nothing is really ringing any bells for me, but she's absolutely beautiful. If you just saw her as Rey's mom, you might, she looks a little rough. She looks a little weathered. She looks like she's seen some hard times. But
hard times.
Jodie is a beautiful young actress.
She certainly is. She certainly is. And I just think the implications of the casting rumor alone give us an indication as to what Shaun Levy's film might be about.
Oh, you think so? You don't think it's a coincidence?
No. She's obviously going to play Rey's mother in this film.
Okay.
But it might be a flashback of some sort. That's the only way that it would fit into the canon, because she is deceased if we want to pay some close attention to some of the info that has dropped about this particular film. According to Kathleen Kennedy, she told Deadline in late February that Lucasfilm had been working with Shawn for about a year and a half up to that point, and he is available to make a Star Wars film right now. Kathy Kennedy said it's all post Episode 9.
Right.
Shawn's is a standalone Star Wars story that will take place post Episode 9, maybe 5 or 6 years out. We may bring in some of the characters back from the sequel saga, but pretty much new characters, thus the Ryan Gosling casting that we are aware of, and that is not getting denied anywhere, not by Ryan Gosling's camp, not by Lucasfilm's camp. It still hasn't really been officially announced. It is still just rumors, but there's a lot of fire behind that smoke, just based on the fact that it's been able to prevail over these past several months without any sort of dispute from Ryan or Ryan's people or Lucasfilm. We certainly know Ryan Gosling is going to be starring in the Shaun Levy Star Wars film. If it is set 5 or 6 years after Episode 9, how do we fit in Rey's mom into the story? We saw that creepy Ochi stab her right in the stomach, didn't we? Or did we just see the father get stabbed? Who got stabbed? Maybe there's a loophole here where Rey's mom actually survives. Now, her husband or mate was the clone son of Palpatine. Much like Boba Fett is the clone son of Jango Fett, Palpatine was cloning himself to find a proper living vessel that could withstand his spiritual grasp on the dark side of the Force, so he could then possess that body in the fine Sith tradition of possessing bodies, which they all love to do, you know. Do you think Anakin Skywalker would have been down with that? You know, absorbing all these other Sith lords. You think Anakin was drinking the Kool-Aid enough, even in full Darth Vader mode, at the peak of his Darth Vader mode? Do you think Anakin Skywalker would have been down with absorbing all of these former Sith lords, as is their tradition? Or maybe am I looking at it too literally? Maybe I should just not think of it that way.
I don't think Anakin would have been down with that. I think Anakin was always his own man.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that Anakin, I don't think there was any loyalty to Sith. I don't think there was any loyalty to the dark side. I think Anakin saw just this as a means to an end. And that end was to save Padme. That was all he cared about. You know, I said something somewhat controversial many years ago on the show, because Jim, you mentioned Dave Myatt, longtime old pal of the show, and we talked about this with Myatt a couple of times. I think one time even on the air, we talked about, well, when does Anakin Skywalker truly and fully become Darth Vader? And I went out on a limb and I said, never. Never. That he always had a part of Anakin Skywalker, and that the Darth Vader thing was somewhat of a coping mechanism. It was how he dealt with the trauma. But did he fully give himself into being Darth Vader and completely extinguish Anakin Skywalker? I don't believe he did. I think there was always Anakin Skywalker there, because we see him at the end of Return of the Jedi.
You know, we've come a long way in watching the evolution of that character. And I remember the conversation you're talking about. It was all born out of the fact that Dave Myatt had such great influence within Star Wars collecting circles that he was able to convince Hasbro to release an Anakin Skywalker action figure. The figure was supposed to depict Anakin after he fell to the dark side.
Right. Red eyes and all.
Yeah, but he wasn't Darth Vader as far as the armored helmet and the cape and all of that stuff. And he convinced Hasbro to release this Anakin action figure from Revenge of the Sith as Darth Vader. They put it right there on the card and everything. It was marketed as Darth Vader, but it was clearly pre-armored helmet and walking iron lung and all of the mechanics and bionics associated with Darth Vader. It was still Anakin Skywalker, but yet Dave Myatt's rationale behind all of this, it was after the coronation of Darth Vader via the Emperor Palpatine in his office after the Jedi attempt on his life. And so, I mean, it really comes down to a very technical situation. Yes, Anakin Skywalker was coronated Darth Vader, but is he fully Darth Vader without the helmet, without the mask, without the electronics and bionics, without the cape and the black boots and everything? Is he truly Darth Vader? And he insisted, yes, 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 and yes, simply because of the fact that Palpatine had already given him that name.
Right.
To me, that's purely technical. That's all technical. I don't think he becomes Darth Vader fully until he's standing there, post-duel with Obi-Wan, post-surgery, cybernetic surgery, his first words after, like, really being rebirthed. His first words are, "Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?" And Palpatine says, "No, you killed her. You destroyed the love of your life. The whole purpose for your existence, your entire future, everything you ever wanted, you destroyed." And so he goes into a fit. And the second he yells, "No," all right, that was pretty convincing.
That was pretty good.
I wasn't being cynical, or I wasn't parodying. No. I wasn't trying to be.
You were voice doubling in that moment. You were.
Yeah,
actually,
I was really going for authenticity there. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But at that moment, that's when he became Darth Vader. And the moment he reverted back to Anakin Skywalker is when he watched the Emperor torture his son in Return of the Jedi with the Sith lightning bolts. And Luke is on the verge of death, and he yells, "Father, Father, please." And Vader once again goes, "No!" All right, I wasn't going for authenticity. I was not going for authenticity that time. I was going for laughs, okay?
No.
All right, that's more authentic. Much more authentic. Thank you, Jason, for saving the show. But at that moment, then, he becomes Anakin again. It's perfect bookends. It perfectly bookends.
But I've never heard George, and you're right. I've heard you talk about this a couple of times, and it is perfect. It's so great. It lines up. It makes a lot of sense. But I've never heard George confirm that.
It doesn't matter. That's the genius of George Lucas, where he leaves it open for us as fans to fill in the blanks. And he will accept any definition of that and probably nod his head and say, "Very good. Maybe pat me on the head." But never will he actually say definitively, "Oh, that's fact." And that's the genius of George Lucas. That's why all Star Wars fans have this ownership of Star Wars. That is very legit, in my opinion. That we, as like the hardcore Star Wars fans, we own Star Wars as much as Kathy Kennedy, as much as Lucasfilm, as much as George did, and as much as Disney does now. We own Star Wars, and we can't ever forget that. Sometimes our self-confidence gets a little damaged by events that happen on social media and whatnot. Who cares? We still own Star Wars. So that's why I think we have to be accepting of the good and the bad from time to time. We just have to, soak it up and wait for the next one. That's the approach I take to it. I try to be nurturing with my ownership of Star Wars.
That we can't always wait for George to confirm things. But the inclusion of the no was so out of left field that I felt that it really needed an explanation. I mean, we even got George on the record talking about McClunky at one point. I mean, George has talked about these things, but I don't recall him ever going on the record and talking about the no.
At that very same red carpet event for Clone Wars Season 4 in 2011, I talked to Mathew Wood about that moment. That additional no, and how there might have been a little bit of fandom angst about all of that. And he responded.
Every change, everything you see and hear in Star Wars is all, it starts and it begins and ends with George, and we facilitate what he wants, and he's always got an idea for what he wants in the movie and how he wants to update or change any of this stuff, and so we facilitate that. So yeah.
What did George reveal to you about what his motivation was for putting that in?
Not much, actually. Yeah, it was more just this is something he wanted to do. We had the material to do it. It's definitely James Earl Jones in there, and it's it's been updated.
Were those taken from prior recordings James did for Revenge of the Sith?
They were taken from a set of recordings from previous recordings that we had in our archive.
And was the move made to connect the trilogies? Connect Vader saying no?
I'm sure that's part of it, of course. Yeah, I mean, he's done stuff like that before with Anakin's ghost and being Hayden now, and just other little connections. Like, in fact, we added a Doug walking in the Jabba's palace, and he looks at the films are a 6-movie arc, and that's what they're being released as, in Blu-ray, and I'm sure that's part of it. George obviously has, it's his movies and his ideas and all that, so it's funny. I mean, I got to say, I feel privileged to work on such a show that has so much attention put to it. I mean, I am a gigantic fan of Star Wars. I've loved it my whole life, and being able to work on it and work at Skywalker Ranch and work directly with George and all that it's been 21 years now, and there's still times where I still have to I can't believe it. So I was going for a walk just recently around Lake Ewok, thinking about all this. Of course, when you release something, it's going to have some form of controversy or something, especially these films, because they're so dear to people's hearts, and they remember it one way and they want to hear it one way or see it some way, and especially with social media and the internet now, I mean, you can comment about anything in any capacity, and everyone has a voice, and that's part of it. That's just part of the world of releasing something to public.
So that's Mathew Wood talking about the no that was added to Return of the Jedi. But of course, Vader said no in a very similar fashion when he learns Padme's dead in Revenge of the Sith, which was also heavily derided. And I like looking at them and thinking in terms of science, where I say, there's a no there and there's a no there. A negative and a negative. Anyone who knows anything about science knows 2 negatives equal a positive. And that's the return of Anakin Skywalker. And so I've always got a little chub considering my acceptance of all of that with
the best,
that sort of approach.
I would say that anything George would say that is contrary or different to that would be less satisfactory. It's the most satisfactory explanation for the addition of the no. Yeah, I think. Now, the episode 3 no was George hearkening back to the monster movies that he loved. Vader coming off the slab like Frankenstein, lumbering, and that he was a monster, and George referred to him as a monster. So that's where I think that comes from. But the no of Jedi, I thought there was so much that was said in the silence of Vader in that moment, in the version that we all grew
Of
to love and
course,
grew up with.
yes.
So much was being said by the silence.
By nothing. Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of emotion was being conveyed.
Yeah.
With just him looking back and forth, and forth, looking at the Emperor, looking at his son in pain, looking at the Emperor. You could fill in the blanks very easily. Very easily.
Sure.
But, I think Lucas looks at it all as incomplete, and he tries to. I think that was a big attempt to draw the connection between the two different trilogies, the birth of Darth Vader and the death of Darth Vader, and have those similarities. To George, it just rhymes. It's like a song. It's like a poem. It rhymes. But to us as fans, we can look at that device of using storytelling that plays off of previous chapters in the form of rhymes. We can look at that and really make some strong connections and definitely tie those threads just by letting our imaginations run wild. So I don't think George would ever accept any of my theories about it as gospel. And I know George from time to time will be rather definitive talking about elements of Star Wars storytelling, and other times he'll be purposefully vague.
Yeah.
So he's a tough cat to pin down as far as getting those definitive answers. But I will accept the more vague approach to where that's your job as a member of the audience to create
you got a little work to do.
Definitive things.
You can't just be spoon-fed this stuff.
Yeah.
Do some work.
I mean, that's really the problem with a lot of modern storytelling going on in films, is that people demand to have everything spoon-fed to them. And if they don't get it, they say things like, well, I didn't learn anything from that. That was filler, without seeing the big picture. And I say that in response to certain Star Wars streaming series in the moment that these chapters are being released. And people call things filler without getting the big picture. I think that's a little unfair to some streaming series, and I think that's a result of Netflix dropping complete seasons at once, where there is no time to speculate for the viewing audience. There is no room for conversation about theories, about where the story is going. There are no blanks to fill in with the Netflix approach. They dump it all on you at once. You watch it in rapid fire succession. You finish a season in 3 days. And you move on to the next thing. It's like eating Taco Bell and then hitting the toilet after.
but the flip side of that is what the last few streaming series from Lucasfilm have been, which is these sort of random cuts, these random edits to where, now let's cut. That's an episode right there, and then this let's take a 2-hour movie and chop it up. I'm with you on the drops, but that works better for me when they're self-contained, and I don't mean they don't tell a whole story, but when they're really well crafted individual episodes, as opposed to this, let's take a 2.5-hour story and chop it up. This one's 40 minutes. This one's 28 minutes. This one's 32 minutes. This one's I'm really over that.
And we're going to pick up next week. We're going to pick up next week right where we left off.
Yeah.
So it's just one big sprawling story. That's why Mandalorian Season 1 was such a smash hit. It was fresh. It was introducing new characters, new situations. You didn't have to pay the price of admission of being this Star Wars historian going into it. It presented you with a solid, self-contained adventure with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then dropping little seeds of a ongoing story thread that led you all the way through the season up to Moff Gideon and the final episode. We haven't seen that in Star Wars streaming since Mandalorian Season 1. Season 2, you started to see the whole thing get a little high on its own supply and start connecting to all of this previously existing Star Wars mythology. I got to blame Dave Filoni for that, quite honestly. If I'm going to point fingers, I'm pointing at you, Filoni. But still, Season 2 was very effective. Season 3 was like talk about getting high on your own supply. It's like that scene from Scarface when Al Pacino has a giant pile of cocaine in front of him on his desk. He just sticks his whole face into it. That was getting high on your own supply, and that doesn't even compare to what Ahsoka was. Ahsoka was ridiculously high on its own supply, and it turned so many people off, and the viewership numbers reflected that.
Yeah.
Even though me, as a longtime Filoni fan, Clone Wars fan, Rebels fan, Ahsoka fan, I dug it just fine. But, I mean, it is what it is. There needs to be effectiveness with the way they execute this storytelling. It can't
How
be
about
all
they
so
just pretend they're making the show for broadcast television. Give us a solid 48, 50 minutes of story and make it make sense where the episode starts and where the episode ends and how we get to the next episode. I know it's streaming. I know it's this new way of doing television, but I don't like these arbitrary cuts and this drip the movie to you week after week.
But yet with a series like The Penguin, it works brilliantly. Why is that? Why is that? Think about it.
Good question. It's a good question because there were many cuts in The Penguin where it although
picked up right where it left off.
It did, but they didn't here's the thing about Penguin. They never stopped until you were satisfied. Like I feel that these episodes in the Star Wars streaming series, they don't care if they're leaving you hungry still. They're not long enough. There's
to
not even enough.
justify continuing the story next week.
Yeah.
Because they're presenting it to us in sitcom length episodes. You have to put more meat on the bone. This isn't Three's Company, 1979. So we got a clip from Shaun Levy just to sort of illustrate. You like that segue, Swank? It was just
that was fantastic. That was fantastic.
It was like cold as ice, man. It was like I got ice cubes in my veins.
Whoa. Okay, Shaun Levy.
We didn't get the what?
I was gonna say,
come on.
Do we? Oh, let's do the Levy. You're right. Let's do the Levy.
All right,
I'll follow the script.
Okay.
You're right.
My instincts prove correct. We are going to the Shaun Levy clip, and here he discusses. Just in case you're wondering, with this Shaun Levy guy, he did that Deadpool movie. It was a big smash hit. He's a Stranger Things director. What's he going to bring to Star Wars? Where's his head at? What's up with this guy? Well, he discusses his approach to creating his Star Wars film.
There's only so many times that Star Wars movies can revisit the same section of the timeline. And so it's really forced me, because I don't want to do a Star Wars movie that is redundant to others, nor am I interested in doing one that has to serve another movie. I really wanted to craft something that felt organic to me, both in tone and characters. So I think that there's certainly the Force and a connection to something bigger than our individual selves, and the way that can make us powerful. Those themes combined with visual delight and wish fulfillment, that's Star Wars to me.
I think he nailed it.
What he told.
He nailed it.
Yeah, he really did. That was Shaun on Happy, Sad, Confused from, I don't know, half a year ago or whatever.
August,
but
actually.
He has a real sharp clarity in what makes Star Wars important to him. And I like that he has done all of the legwork to free himself from any constraints that franchise storytelling might place on the story he wants to tell. He doesn't want this to be anything more than a totally self-contained story that will stand on its own for decades. We could go back and look at it and get the full story. There's not going to be any loose ends, half stories being told where it gets resolved 2 movies later. Nnone of that stuff. He's
Mangold
really
said the same thing about his Star Wars.
Well, I mean,
he didn't want to
really
worry about so much lore, and he wanted to get a lot of space between his project and other Star Wars projects in terms of the timeline.
Well, isn't that how franchises are created? By standalone stories that are really strong and have the power and the energy to demand audience anticipation for what could happen next without us being manipulated by cliffhanger endings or loose threads. I mean, can't we just tell a solid story that's totally self-contained that will provide us with a singular experience of full fan fulfillment by watching this one movie? Like an E.T., for example. You know, I'm just grabbing at ideas here. E.T., no sequels ever to E.T. It gave you that beautiful experience. However, if Steven Spielberg, I think he held the reins of E.T. pretty tightly and had paperwork that said no sequels to this film. But a film like E.T. could have easily launched a franchise.
Oh, and wait a minute. Think about when, E.T. comes out in 83. Spielberg has already been burned by Jaws sequels at this point.
Yeah.
Right? And, whether it be the Police Academy movies or the horror genre, the sequels of the 80s, coming out of the late 70s and into the 80s, they were all terrible. I mean, George stood alone. Coppola's Godfather 2 stood alone.
I'm a little offended right now as a Police Academy fan.
Well, I'm sorry about Police Academy.
I love them all the way up to Police Academy 19. They were all great.
I know you celebrate
every one.
Gutenberg's whole catalog of film roles.
I'll tell you, when they started the CGI Bubba Smith into some of those new movies, I started to.
That was a bridge too far, wasn't it?
Yeah, the integrity of this whole shebang has gone out the window, right? Yeah. But
so I can imagine
Spielberg
being I can imagine him being very protective, especially at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Of E.T. But E.T.'s not a franchise.
But like I said, it's still a standalone thing that could have easily launched a franchise. If you introduce a real solid standalone Star Wars story of film into the current state of the franchise today, you could set the entire franchise on a new direction for the next 25 years.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So if this is done right, and like I said, all of the great films that established franchises back in the day were not conceived as franchises necessarily. It was just a filmmaker struggling to get his vision onto film and
even Star Wars.
Especially Star Wars. George Lucas started devising ideas for a made-for-TV Star Wars sequel, and the Splinter of the Mind's Eye book and all of that stuff represents all of that. George had a plan B because he knew success wasn't a sure thing. Yeah. So he did everything in his power to create Star Wars with the beginning, a middle, and the end. The only thing that was really left unresolved at the beginning of the first film was the fate of Darth Vader. He spins away and flies off to freedom.
Classic serial style, right? I mean,
yeah. Ming the Merciless. Very Ming the Merciless.
Rebel Force Radio.
Jesse Plemons. Now, this is not an actor that I'm overly familiar with. Jim, I know you watched Breaking Bad. I did not watch Breaking Bad. But yes, rumors are that Jesse Plemons of Breaking Bad fame, he was Todd in the last season of the,
he was
of the
amazing.
show. He was also in Fargo, received an Emmy nomination for his role as Ed Blumquist in the second season of Fargo. But so he is being rumored to be playing a role. Does it say bad guy or good guy? No confirmation.
Villain.
On what
Yes.
Oh, it does say villain.
It does say villain.
Star
Although the studio
Wars
has not
villain.
officially confirmed it, the rumor is that he's going to play a Star Wars villain. And Jason, I sent you a clip via your email.
Which my email.
Yeah, I don't think I put it in our general audio folder, but this is a clip of Jesse Plemons, because this is the second time Jesse has come up. His name has come up in the history of Star Wars. I remember when the casting net was being thrown out there in a very wide fashion to enlist actors for J.J. Abrams' first film of the sequel trilogy, The Force Awakens. A lot of people were up for the role of Finn, the role that eventually became Finn. And we heard tons of rumors about actors auditioning for The Force Awakens, or at least being under consideration for that film. And Jesse Plemons was one of them. I remember this. This was I have a clip here of Jesse from back in 2013. And here he is being confronted on the red carpet of something he's in when the rumors were starting to fly around about interest in Lucasfilm in his services for The Force Awakens. And Jesse artfully dodges the question with his tap dancing shoes on.
Well, talk about, well, we've heard this rumor about the Star Wars movie, and you possibly being involved in some capacity. Did you say anything?
No. Yeah, I think it's just one of those crazy rumors.
Crazy rumors, okay.
Is it Jesse?
Yeah, so he just,
is it a crazy rumor, Jesse?
He just, shoves off the whole question that guy was asking about the rumors about him being in Star Wars. He said, no, they're just crazy rumors. But from what we understand, there was a little bit more substance to those rumors. And Jesse has always been someone that Lucasfilm has been desiring to work with. I loved him in Breaking Bad. Something you won't read about Jesse Plemons in any of the articles you see about him is that he was actually pretty good in that Battleship the movie. Remember that?
Oh, my
They made a movie out of the Battleship.
Right, the Battleship game.
Yes.
And they also made a movie of like Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
But I saw the Battleship one a couple of times, and I got to be honest with you. It's not that bad. It's very entertaining.
Okay.
It's silly. It's Saturday night silliness with a bowl of popcorn in your lap, but
I love
it's fun. Jesse's in it. Jesse Plemons is in it. So is Liam Neeson, Ooh. Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do L-34. Yeah. Oh, you sink my battleship. Okay, enough. But, I mean, that's what it was so absurd when I heard that movie announced. It's like, a movie about Hasbro's board game Battleship? This is absurd. What do we think? But it's actually very entertaining. Rihanna's in it.
Wow.
Yeah, Rihanna's with all of her great acting chops.
And for you, you parents of younger kids, when your kids get to be about that 7, 8 years old, especially the boys. My son loved playing Battleship when he was that age.
Yeah.
We used to have a ball. So
I still love playing Battleship.
It's still
give me
fun,
a pint, give me a cold pint and a couple of Battleship boards and somebody else who's down with it. Let's go. That's a Saturday night. So I'm telling you, maybe it's a guilty pleasure. I don't know. But don't sleep on that Battleship the movie. It's on. They show it on cable all the time. You can stream it. I'm telling you, you'll have a good time with that movie.
I'm gonna take Jimmy Mac's Battleship the movie challenge.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't any like Oscar-worthy kind of business. This is no highbrow stuff I'm throwing at you. If you just want to have a good time with a goofy popcorn movie, Battleship. Don't sleep on that one. Everyone did. It's awesome. I love it. I've seen it twice. Twice I've watched it.
Wow.
And Jesse Plemons is in it. But Jonathan Tropper, who's working on Shaun Levy's film, was out promoting his film, Your Friends and Neighbors, and he told Collider that the gig writing on Star Wars is something he's dreamed about his whole life. He's still working on it for various reasons. He can't say anything about it, but he's working on it. So that's like the first real confirmation that we're getting that Jonathan Tropper's working on the script. He's worked on 4 other projects with Shaun Levy, so it was almost kind of, guaranteed he was going to be working on Star Wars. And we talked about the things that Kathleen Kennedy has already said about what's going on with Shaun's film, about bringing new characters back. But the main thing she says is Shaun is available to make the film now. And we know he's right now. And we know he's a hot commodity as far as his status goes with Disney because he made them a ton of money with the Daredevil or the
Wolverine.
Who's the idiot? Deadpool
and Wolverine.
Yes, and so they made a ton of money with that. So he's a hot commodity, and hopefully this isn't another flavor of the week situation that Lucasfilm has stumbled into time and time again. I hope that Shawn Levy has some real substance behind his approach to Star Wars, and judging from that audio clip we heard earlier, he's coming at it from the right direction. I think he's a filmmaker who's kind of safe, but yet he thinks out his things, and hopefully he'll hit a home run with this Star Wars story.
I'm okay with safe, by the way, when it comes to Star Wars. I'm good with safe. I don't want any gambles. Yeah.
There's been too many. There's been too many left field choices being made for people to contribute to the Star Wars saga. And so let's get some people in there who actually know what they're doing.
Please.
And one guy who knows what he's doing is Tony Gilroy. We got Andor Season 2 launching in a couple of weeks. We have run times for Season 2. And what we're getting out of the run times, most of the episodes are around the 50... There's several that are 54 minutes. This all includes previously on and end credits.
And those end credits, you guys know, go like 7-8 minutes.
Exactly. And that setup goes on for a couple of minutes as well.
Sure.
But episode 1's going to be... I hate the helmets. Episode 1 is 51 minutes. Episode 2 is 44 minutes. Episode 3 is 53 minutes. So we're going to be spending a lot of time with Andor as these arcs drop week after week. I have 49 and a half minutes as the average length for each episode, with the longest episode coming in at 58 minutes and the shortest episode, which is its penultimate episode, episode 11, coming in at 42 minutes. So
I broke it down by arcs.
Oh,
and
good.
So
good.
we're looking at the longest arc is actually the second one. It's about 2.7 hours. The first arc is 2.4 hours. Arc 3 is 2.5 hours. And arc 4 is 2.3 hours. They're all right around 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Some a little more, some a little less. But surprisingly, the shortest is the last one.
Yeah, that is kind of surprising. You'd think that's where they would want to put the most information. While it appears the longest arc might
is arc
be
2.
The second arc. Yeah. Each episode being 54 minutes long. So we're going to be getting a lot of storytelling for the next month here as we get into mid-April, into mid-May. It's going to be a lot hitting us at once. I'm going to try to watch the episodes just casually for the first to run through on Tuesday night as soon as they drop, and then I'm going to watch it a second time taking notes. And my note-taking process is meticulous. I'll probably be up to 3 a.m. every Tuesday night. So you're going to be getting a real wacky Jimmy Mack for the live after shows the following night. Definitely sleep depraved and everything. But hey, it's not the first time you guys have heard that, definitely. But this is the first time I'm giving you a heads up about it.
It's going to be a lot of Star Wars in a short time across those 4 weeks. But it's going to be fun. We've never done this before. I mean, this will be great. And we talk about meat on the bone. Boy, we're going to get plenty meat to chew on each week. So strap in.
Try to put a limit right now. Trying to put a limit on the live after shows at 3 hours. Okay.
Yep. 3 hours and out. Guys.
I'm throwing it out there just so it's a fish, you know. Do these 5-hour after shows. Can't deal with it, man. Can't deal with it. Especially on like 4 hours of sleep. It's not going to be pretty. So, but it's the things we do for you, the listener, the sacrifices we make.
Happy to do
it. And the amount of Star Wars we can consume is something not to be taken lightly. And so we hope to bring it to you in the after shows. And we can't wait to hear what you guys think of these Andor after shows, because the RFR switchboard will be open. Tyler Page will be with us for each and every show, screening your calls, talking to you. I mean, Tyler's got his own show going on.
Oh,
as we're doing our own show. I would love to hear
on the call screening.
I would love to hear that. I wonder if we could do that. We should do that. We must be able to do that. So, Tyler, get together with me. We'll deal with the tech specs of all of this business. But first, we can't go into our Cantina interview without paying our respects to one of the greats from the original trilogy, the man who really first brought Emperor Palpatine to life via his voice, and that's Clive Revill. Clive Revill, the original voice of Emperor Palpatine in Empire Strikes Back, passed away at age 94. This is a story we wanted to do last week, but we ran out of time. But Clive, his voice can only be heard briefly in that original cut of Empire Strikes Back. And I have a clip here of a New York Times. This is the New York Times bot who's going to give us a lowdown on Clive Revill. Clive Revill, R.I.P., New York Times.
It was a minute that changed the course of the Star Wars franchise. In The Empire Strikes Back, the now celebrated 1980 sequel, audiences were treated to the first on-camera sighting of Emperor Palpatine. But Palpatine's voice, cool, crisp, and commanding, belonged to Clive Revill, who in about 60 seconds set the stage for one of the most feared and infamous characters in science fiction. Mr. Revill died on March 11th in Sherman Oaks, California. He was 94. His daughter, Kate Revill, said the cause was complications of dementia. Palpatine wasn't Mr. Revill's only contribution to the Star Wars universe. In 1993, he lent his voice to the video game Star Wars X-Wing. He also returned to the franchise almost 2 decades later to voice multiple characters for the 2011 video game Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Clive Revill, R.I.P. I got to tell you, when it comes to Clive, I much prefer the dialogue in the original Clive script. In the original Empire Strikes Back cut that we saw prior to the Blu-rays, where they introduced Ian McDiarmid, I have no issue with Ian McDiarmid's performance. Obviously, he's defined the role. But I gotta say, it's so on the nose when I have no doubt that this boy, Luke Skywalker, is the one wearing the orange jumpsuit in the X-Wing fighter. And he's hanging out with Han Solo and Princess Leia. I mean, he just keeps going on and on. Whereas the version that they wrote for Clive is sort of mysterious. And it's a little more vague. Where
a little less defined.
It's a little less defined. And, we were talking earlier about George. Sometimes he overly defines things. Sometimes he leaves things very vague. In this case, this is one where I feel like he was really trying to spoon feed the audience. He's the one that destroyed the Death Star, the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. Whereas if you go back and you watch the original, it's just perfect. It really is. It really is perfect. He evokes it. He hints at it. And if you're a fan of Shadows of the Empire and you're thinking about Shizor being on the other side of that hologram, it all works and it makes sense.
Wow, so you're going deep.
I'm going
That's
deep.
about as deep into the EU as you'll ever hear Jason Swank go.
You better believe it. That's my EU. My EU is the Thrawn novels and Shadows of the Empire. But point being is, I just thought that it, again, I love having Ian McDiarmid and the consistency of the look of the character and the voice and all that. I'm talking about the dialogue here. It's great. Also, since we're paying tribute to Clive Revill, his delivery is fantastic. What a great voice. He wasn't trying to do anything creepy. Ian McDiarmid famously talked about trying to do the Toad voice, the evil Toad, whereas Clive Revill is more like, There is a great disturbance in the Force. Oh, and he almost, you wouldn't even know he's really a bad guy if you just listen to the voice, which is really interesting in and of itself. So captivating as a kid for me growing up on these movies. So certainly don't want to overlook the contribution of Clive Revill, the original Emperor.
Well, it's true. The evilness didn't really come through the voice as much as it did through the horrifying image of
the monkey eyes,
the Emperor. It was an old lady face with a cloak over her head and monkey eyes superimposed into the eye sockets. It still is one of the most truly horrifying visages in the entire history of Star Wars. But Clive did have a certain smoothness to his voice. It was definitely something that inspired Ian McDiarmid. But let's hear Clive, a little excerpt of Clive's take of Emperor Palpatine.
There is a great disturbance in the Force.
I have felt it.
We have a new enemy, Luke Skywalker.
Yes, my master.
He could destroy us.
He's just a boy. Obi-Wan can no longer help him.
The Force is strong with him. The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi.
Yeah, it's so much cooler when he refers to him as the son of Skywalker, must not become a Jedi, instead of, I have no doubt this is the young rebel, is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. They did it on the night of December. No. Ooh, he really gets detailed. He gets so detailed in the, compared to this, where it's a lot more vague. But yeah, the cool, keeping it back to Clive, the cool, calm, collected way that Clive delivers is great. And it's fun to go back and listen to.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we never were presented with the opportunity to interview Clive Revill here on Rebel Force Radio, but friend of the show, Daryl James, did get that opportunity. I met Daryl James back at Star Wars Celebration Japan back in 2008. We both did tag teams on Ray Park at that show when they were closing down the whole thing. And so we got to talking a little bit, and I've admired his YouTube channel, Star Wars 100 Interviews, for a long time, ever since that day, quite honestly. Daryl's a good guy. So he gave us a clip of Clive Revill talking about how he got the gig being the Emperor's voice. So this is a clip courtesy of Daryl James and his YouTube channel, Star Wars 100 Interviews, which you should check out. He's got a lot of he's got 100 Star Wars interviews there. And Daryl's been around on the scene for quite a while. So I just want him to get a little love, and I want to present you with a little bit of Clive Revill himself on this tribute to Clive Revill.
Evan and I were great friends, and I'd done a couple of pictures for him. And the story was that he called me up and he said, look, can you come down to a recording studio down on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles? There's something we're looking for something and we don't know what it is. And I said, well, I'll go down. And he said, there it is. And he gave it to me on paper, which was a bit baffling. And I said, well, what's the parameters? What's the style of it? He said, you'll have to find that yourself. And I said, well, what is it about? He said, well, it's about someone or something who is possibly in charge of the entire universe. Wow. And I got very close to the microphone, and I will to the microphone in this. There is a great disturbance in the Force.
Oh, love it. Love it. Yes. The great Clive Revill reprising his role.
Right. And that was just the voice that he conjured up, and it turned out to be a voice that made a huge impact on the character of Palpatine and a huge impact on Ian McDiarmid. And Ian McDiarmid even considered Clive Revill's version, and he discusses here on this clip how the Emperor's voice sort of evolved from the original version done by Clive Revill.
One day, Richard came up to me. One day, I mean, we weren't doing this for very long, but he said to me, now look, I'm going to give you a tape of Clive Revill's voice. And Clive Revill did the voice of the Emperor in the previous movie. And if you can get sort of close to it, George might be happy to let you keep your voice. And I had no idea that I wouldn't be using my voice. And I thought, oh. So I listened to Clive Revill, and I thought, well, that's fine. But having seen that makeup, which Clive never had the privilege of doing or being in, I think the voice shouldn't be like that. It should be something deeper, more sepulchral, more horrible. So I did a bit of that, and Richard said, yes, well, that's good. You've been doing that voice, I see, throughout. And George actually is quite taken with it. So just go on doing it.
So
Make
they
the
knew
boss
a good
happy.
thing. Yeah.
Make the boss happy, damn it.
They knew a good
George
thing when they
enjoys
heard
it. Keep it going.
Yeah, keep it going.
I
He's
know
like,
where my
yeah,
check is being paid.
I'll get rid of that Revill guy in a few years. So we'll just be left with yours. But so it's interesting that Clive's legacy in Star Wars might have lived on if Ian would have decided to go that route. But it's important again to point out, Clive wasn't in the makeup. Clive did a voiceover. You got Ian. Ian's got the cane in his hand, the makeup on his face, the robe over his head. So he's feeling it. And it just didn't. Ian being a great classically trained actor, where you sort of let the makeup and the costume do the acting for you. He wasn't feeling that. And so he went with his gut. And he created that voice.
Yeah.
And George loved it. And, Clive is kind of now a footnote when it comes to Star Wars. But for those of us that grew up with the original versions of the movies for all those years, that voice, and again, I just want to mention that dialogue, the way it was originally written, is just fantastic.
It's brilliant. And, Clive revealed in that clip that we got from Daryl James that he was tight with Irvin Kersner. At the very beginning, he said he'd worked with Irvin Kersner before. Irvin called him up and gave him this role and told him just basically to wing it. And, a lot of fans lament the fact that Irvin Kersner did not return to Star Wars to direct Return of the Jedi. We could have been stuck with Clive Revill, quite honestly. May he rest in peace. Yeah. We could have been stuck with him in the role all the way up until like today in the year 2025, when we still have Ian McDiarmid returning to the role of the Emperor in various animated and streaming shows and in The Rise of Skywalker. It's a character that will never go away. And Ian McDiarmid now owns it. But if Irvin Kersner was given the director's seat for Return of the Jedi, he very well might have been thinking of continuity and working with his friend Clive Revill. And we would have been robbed of the Ian McDiarmid Emperor experience. So next time you vocally lament the fact that Irvin Kersner was a one and done with Empire Strikes Back and didn't return to Star Wars to direct anything, well, think about that for a second. We might have been robbed of the great Ian McDiarmid's performance in Return of the Jedi and everything since then. So good for him. Good for him.
The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi.
Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, last week we were talking about the Star Wars Holiday Special as we were reviewing Bruce Vilanch's audio book. And Jason, you had a question about Jefferson Starship song, Light the Sky on Fire. Right. And we have a friend here at RFR, a friend of the show, Todd Mills, who is also the current stage manager for Jefferson Starship. So I figured I'd reach out to Todd and see if he had any insider information about Jefferson Starship's appearance on the Star Wars Holiday Special. So let's jump into the Cantina with Jefferson Starship stage manager Todd Mills.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master?
For a drink. Sorry about the mess. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Todd, thank you so much for joining us here on Rebel Force Radio.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you so much for joining us, Todd. Todd's a guy, he's from the Chicago area. He's been with Jefferson Starship as their, I always say you're the road manager because, I mean, is that pretty accurate to say that about you, or is there a separate guy who's road manager?
Well, depending on how you define the term, I'm the stage manager.
Yeah, okay,
I handle everything on the stage.
All
And
right.
we have a tour manager who does he's actually doing two jobs. He's our sound man as well as our tour manager who kind of does the logistics for the band.
Okay. All right. Well, you're with Jefferson Starship now, and you are a huge Star Wars fan. You're a listener of Rebel Force Radio.
That I am.
Yeah, and we connected over Star Wars, and actually we've been able to hang out before, and I hope to hang out with you sometime again soon. But the reason we brought you on the show is last week we were listening to some Bruce Valanche recollections of the Star Wars Holiday Special. He was one of the writers of the show, and we were reviewing his audiobook. And Jason asked the question, did Jefferson Starship write the song, what is it, Bring on the
Light
Fire?
the Sky on Fire.
Light the Sky on Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, did they write that song specifically for the Holiday Special, or did it already exist?
I don't believe they wrote it. It may have been a song that Craig Chiquiso had written. I had asked about it, and the only person I really have contact with who was on that is David Freiberg,
Yes.
that guy with the really curly hair playing the guitar. He's the original guy who's with the band now. He doesn't really talk about it too much. I mean, it's not like it was a dramatic situation for him. It was just another video for him. He does have one story that I'll tell if you want. But as far as writing the song, it was a Craig Chiquiso song. As you mentioned before, it was on Gold, the album Gold, and those were all hits. And then I believe it was on the B-side for Hyperdrive.
Oh, okay. Hyperdrive. Now, why didn't they just go with the A side? It seems like a song like Hyperdrive really lends itself more to Star Wars than Light the Sky on Fire.
It's so obvious.
It's funny when I went to, for some reason, I don't know why I wasn't thinking about it before, but when I went to Rancho Obi-Wan, I saw the display they had in the room. They've got that little room mocked up, and they have the record player, and they have the single for Light the Sky on Fire.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
a deep cut.
I did add to that display. I gave him 2 of David's guitar picks.
No kidding. Really?
Yeah, so
How
hopefully
cool
they're
is
there.
that? So you went to Rancho Obi-Wan with some of the crew on any of the band members of Jefferson Starship go on that tour?
Actually, current guitar player Jude Gold and Chris Smith, the current keyboard player, they went with me. They knew that I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Chris also lives in Petaluma.
Oh, great. So it's kind of a homecoming for him.
Right. So we were there, and we went. I think I reached out to Anne.
Mm-hmm.
I think I dropped David's name, and she got us in. They were closed still, I think, and then she got us in for a private tour. It was great. I had a blast.
Well, definitely, man. You can't help but have a blast at Rancho Obi-Wan. And I'm
Absolutely.
Sure, we will. We're
think
taking a group of listeners out there on September 6th. So we're really looking forward to that. Yeah.
I hear Chris wants to go back, so I'm always game. I think he always wants to go back to it, which is pretty funny.
Well, he's a neighbor living out there in Petaluma, so maybe we could arrange something. You know, maybe if Jefferson Starship isn't on the road, maybe you guys can join us when we're out there. A little live performance. Live performance.
That's a possibility.
Jefferson Starship live from Rancho Obi-Wan.
Wow.
Get the whole band out there.
Yeah, what a step up from Glenn being our house band at these live RFR events. We go from Glenn Nelson and High Adventure to Jefferson frickin' Starship. Jeez. So Todd, do you know if the band had any say as to what song was going to be featured? Was it just a song that they were looking to push at that particular time, or was there a lot of thought that went into this?
Unfortunately, I don't know. David's very high level when he talks about it. And there was only, like I said, there was only one story he's relayed to me, and it was kind of funny. I'll tell you. So, if you remember watching the video, the singer Marty Balin is singing with. He's got the microphone, and it looks like a lightsaber. The story that David is telling me is that Paul Kantner, the original, the person who started Jefferson Starship, he is a huge sci-fi fan. Loves Star Wars, and his daughter's even confirmed that he read all sci-fi. So he was jealous of Marty having the microphone, and he held up production of the video because he wanted one too. And somehow, some way, I don't know how they got him off it. He never ended up with one, but he held up production because of that.
Really? Wow. He stopped everything and just still didn't get his way. He didn't get that lightsaber tilt of the microphone.
Yeah, somehow they talked him out of it.
So Grace Slick famously is not part of this performance. This was at a time when she had she left the band. I think she was in rehab. So they carried on without her and shot this video. And have you ever heard a story about Grace Slick showing up at the soundstage, demanding to be included in the performance, yet being denied entrance into the soundstage? Have you ever heard that story?
I have not. I've talked to her daughter about it a little bit, China.
Yeah?
Yeah. She hasn't really said much about it. Hopefully I'll get to meet Grace soon, but I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of that deep knowledge. Nobody really talks about it too much. David's my only.
It's not top priority.
That in and of itself is kind of a clue. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Could be.
Well, that's interesting stuff. We have a clip from Pete Sears, who appeared in the documentary A Disturbance in the Force. And it's an audio clip of Pete sharing some of his recollections of that actual shooting of that music video that they included in the thing. And as you can imagine, Pete, he's a musician from the 70s and everything. His memory probably isn't as sharp as maybe as it should be. So again, or he's keeping things very high level. But Jason, if you wouldn't mind, could you fire off the Pete Sears audio clip?
We recorded this song, Light the Sky and Fire, with Marty Balin singing, and he was the main singer because Grace was in rehab. So we went ahead and ended up on the Star Wars Christmas holiday special. It was a Christmas special, we called it at the time. And none of us really knew what was going on, but we ended up playing there. I remember we were rehearsing at Grace's house over in San Francisco, overlooking the bay, this beautiful house. And Darth Vader came by. It was like a publicity thing. Came by and took some photographs. And we got some photographs of us hanging out with Darth Vader. So we had some relationship already. Of course, I didn't really know what to expect. It was a trip. I remember a little bit about it. I remember they let us loose in a room full of props, like a costume room kind of thing. They said just try and make up an outfit. No direction, really, just individually make up anything you want. And it just, as long as it looks like it's from another galaxy or something, or from the future.
So there
that explains David's outfit.
They
It's
might
like
have found
kids
that
finding
microphone.
grandpa's and grandma's old clothes, and they're gonna put something together to go trick or treating in. Like there was just so little thought on this stuff. And meanwhile, they got Bob Mackey working on the other half of things in designing these incredible outfits. It was such a mishmash, the production of this thing.
Well, maybe Mackie designed the wardrobe that Jefferson Starship is wearing in this. They didn't say where the
they
props
didn't
and costumes
know,
came
but
from.
It's true.
Or Pete didn't say that.
Just sounded like, here's a trunk of old stuff. Find something.
Todd, when you're on the road with Jefferson Starship, you guys are always playing all over the place on tours and even on, rock and roll cruise ships and things like that. Do you ever incorporate any visual representation of your fandom on the Jefferson Starship stage? Do you ever put any Star Wars trinkets on stage or anything like that?
Shortly after I started with Jefferson Starship, Chris, the keyboard player, gave me a Darth Vader figure, and it traveled with me for probably a year and a half. In my role, I have to start carrying other things. I'm starting carrying cables and other things that the band needs for, I'm carrying drumsticks and things of that nature. I actually had to stop carrying it. But what I would do is I would put it on my my guitar boat where I keep all the guitars for the show. And then even before, I would carry an R2-D2 around with me. It's like a stuffy R2-D2 that stayed on my backpack. So he's been on there the entire time, and he's always with me on stage. So yeah, there's definitely some Star Wars on stage no matter what.
Can you spot the Darth Vader from the audience if they're looking in the right spot? Where should people look?
I'm usually stage left. So I'll come out behind Jude. He usually hangs on the end. So he's usually faced towards Cappy with his arm out like this.
Doing the choke. The force choke. Wow.
Was that a force choke motion I was seeing?
Maybe.
And of course, you'll
Cappy
be with
likes
Kathy.
to introduce me on stage, and I actually have stage fright. So that was my response to it.
That's interesting.
Wow. Pavarotti used a white hanky, and you use a Darth Vader doll to ease the stage fright.
Yeah.
Well, Todd, you've been a Star Wars fan all your life. As a matter of fact, I recall you telling a story where being the Star Wars guy amongst your group of friends got you in trouble with your dad. There were some late night phone calls going on. What was that story all about?
Yeah. So I was going to school, and I was being a good boy that night, and I was going to sleep. Phone rings probably around 10:30, and I had an early class. My dad comes in and says, "Todd, phone." So picked up the phone, and it's my friends. They'd been sitting around a fire drinking and talking Star Wars, and they're like, "Todd, what's the name of the guy who sits on Jabba's throne?" Salacious Crumb. And then I hung up the phone.
Went back to sleep.
My dad wasn't happy about getting that call at 10:30 at night because he had to shift work in the steel mill too. So
now here's how art imitates life in a way, is that, Todd, I don't know if you know the origin story of the name Salacious Crumb, but it did involve inebriation.
This is
I think
true.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Lauren Peterson that bent down?
It was
which of the ILM guy was it?
It was
that bent down to tie his, shoelaces.
I remember hearing this.
Was it
one.
Lauren Peterson?
No, it wasn't Lauren. It wasn't Lauren, and it wasn't Phil Tippett. Oh, it is Phil Tippett. What am I thinking?
It was Tippett.
Of course,
all right,
it was Phil. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Of course. It was Phil.
I get Phil and Lauren Peterson mixed up in my head. I don't know why.
Yeah, I get Phil and Dennis Murin mixed up in my head, and that's what was happening right there. I was thinking Phil Tippett, but I was seeing Dennis Murin. It's an affliction, quite honestly, that Star Wars fans have happen to them when they get a little older.
When you're drunk and you try to say the word shoelaces, it comes out as salacious.
Yeah.
And hence Salacious Crumb was born.
The name was born, and that's a true story. and that was in the ILM documentary Light and Magic, and the second season will be launching next Friday, which I can't wait for. And I know you can't wait for it either, Todd, because you're a big Star Wars fan, so we're going to throw the Yoda questionnaire at you.
Oh, boy.
I hope you're prepared for this. You've been working
warned?
your whole life for this moment. This is all roads intersect at the Yoda questionnaire.
All right.
The Yoda Questionnaire.
All right, thank you, Richard Cheese. All right, the Yoda Questionnaire. It tests your Star Wars knowledge, but not in the way that you think. This is not just routine, trivial kind of questions. These are deep questions, and there are no wrong answers, but there are answers that are more right than others. So, Todd, if you're ready, we'll take you on the journey. We should mention, by the way, that the questions are named after Jedi Master Yoda because the diminutive master himself did send them to us via fax from Dagobah. So we have the fax right here, straight from the hovel or hut.
That's as far as technology only goes as far as fax machines on Dagobah. That's as far as the technology is advanced. Yeah. One of these days, they'll get some like Wi-Fi.
Starlink, maybe. Maybe Elon Musk will bring Starlink to Dagobah. Who knows?
Maybe.
All right. Well, let's start with an easy question, or is it? Who or what, Todd, is your favorite Star Wars character? Who or what is your favorite?
Hands down, R2-D2.
R2.
Wow.
Yes, here. Let me show you this. See if I got the right arm.
Oh, are we going to see a tattoo? We're going to see an R2 tattoo.
You're going to see a tattoo.
Yes, nice. Hey, hold that up. Can you hold that up one more time, Todd, so we can get a good look at it?
Oh,
and I'll explain to our Cleveland friend what we're looking at here. That the stripes and the stars represent the Chicago flag. That's the city flag. And then R2's mouth is the Chicago skyline. His mouth is data ports or whatever you want.
And then the antenna.
And then his antenna is the Sears Tower. So there you have it. What about his for lack of a better term, shoulders? It seems like something.
I think the shoulder is one of the Ferris wheel at the Navy Pier.
It's the Navy Pier Ferris wheel, which
what
is
a great mashup.
Yeah.
So R2-D2
really cool.
meets Chicago. Now, in your head canon, Todd, is that R2 or is that a new astromech that's like R2 Chai 2 or something like that?
That's T5M1. Sure, why
all right,
not?
let me see. Hold on. I'm going to write this down. T5M1. I want to figure out what this stands for.
Mac's going to break the code. T5M1.
Todd Mills. But the 5-1. I don't know. You'll have to tell us what the 5 and the 1 stand for.
My favorite number is 51.
Oh, well, there you
on
go.
all my geeky jerseys, Star Wars jerseys, if they don't come stock with a name and number, Mills 51 is always on the back of them.
Yeah, it's good to have a favorite number. I have one too. It's followed me around my whole life, and I'm not going to share what it is. Primarily because I think it's on a few of my internet passwords.
Yeah,
it's his ATM pin.
Right.
I've made sure that mine wasn't 51. So.
All right, Todd, we got to get
behind me and
now.
I got my jersey on.
Well, you didn't tell us what it is about R2-D2 that attracts you so much to the point where you're going to say it's your favorite character in all of Star Wars.
He saves everybody's butt.
Well, he sure does. That's kind of like your job with the band, right? Isn't that your job with Jefferson Starship, to save everyone's butt?
Anything goes wrong on that stage, it's my responsibility.
That's right. One little thing is out of place, then all hell breaks loose.
That's right.
So Todd, make sure that doesn't happen.
You have little data ports and like little things that stick out of you that you just plug in when things go bad? I guess you do.
No, that would be a decent exposure.
But when things go wrong, he makes all those R2 sounds.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Enough messing around. We got a very serious question to follow that up. We're going to venture over to the dark side and ask you who or what, Todd, is your least favorite Star Wars character? Least favorite.
I'd have to say Jar Jar.
Okay, that is a popular answer.
A little too comic-y for me.
Too comic-y.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay, that is fair. I mean, there's no denying that we've heard that more than once as an answer to this question. Now, when the film came out, when Phantom Menace came out back in 1999, did you make up your mind right away about Jar Jar, or is it something that kind of over time you decided he's not really your cup of tea? Or did you?
I think I decided it kind of at the time. He's there. He's part of the story. He's part of the canon. He's part of everything. So you take the good with the bad, and you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater for sure.
Right.
Sure.
Well, a lot of people have said Jar Jar Binks as an answer to that question, almost to the point where it's. I look at it as largely the default answer.
Right. It's the RSTLNE of Wheel of Fortune.
RSTLNE. Okay.
You ever notice that?
That doesn't spell anything. No, I get what you're saying. But yeah, I do. It's like the default. People always pick the same letters when it's their turns on Wheel of Fortune is what you're saying. And you're drawing a comparison to the Yoda Questionnaire where people 9 times out of 10 say Jar Jar Binks. And I think that's just out of that's a muscle memory kind of thing. Because are you people forgetting the Acolyte? There are so many other characters to choose from when it comes to answering that particular question of the Yoda Questionnaire.
Well,
I mean, how we're not getting more Vernestra Rose, Acolyte was last summer, folks. It's been around for a while. Let's hear from the Mother Anastasia crowd. Let's hear from the Vernestra Rowe crowd. We want to hear from you. You have question number 2 of the Yoda Questionnaire just begging for you to fill in the blank with one of those 2 characters.
That's if you consider them real characters in Star Wars.
Oh, well, see, Jason's getting all existential on us.
No, I consider it all real. I'm not. What am I going to do? Walk off the podcast and say I'm not talking about Acolyte? That's not real Star Wars.
People have done it, though. People have done it.
All right, Todd, got a couple more of these questions here for you. You're doing great so far.
Yeah, you're doing really good. Stick with it, man. We're almost through with it. Just hang in there.
Stay on target. Todd, what Star Wars moment? And as Mac was pointing out, there's all the way up through Acolyte and Andor and
Skeleton
Crew, right? But so there's a lot of moments in Star Wars. But what Star Wars moment always makes you smile?
The moment, the scene with Han, Chewie, and Luke in the detention center when they're blowing everything up, and Han's talking to the security guy who finally answers. That always cracks me up.
Here now.
There's a lot of comedy from the 70s that just will not stand up to today. But for some reason, it's the gift of Harrison Ford, where we can look at that scene almost 50 years later, and it still plays in a fresh way. It really does, still even to today. And that says that a lot of credit to the screenwriters and to Harrison for the way he pulled that off. So I agree with your choice. That makes me smile all the time as well. What about you, Jason?
Always. That's right up there. I mean, there's so many of those moments. I would say the humor in Episode 4 gets relatively, I don't want to say unnoticed, but it's not. It's people don't talk about it very much, but it's really funny. It's really funny and subtly funny. Yeah, you came in that thing braver than I thought. Nice.
When I introduced, I mean, there's a lot of those moments. When I introduced Wendy to Star Wars, she had never seen it before. So I showed her those 20th Century Fox re-release VHSs from 1995 to get her started. Remember those? One last time. They said this is the last time you'll be able to get these versions. They weren't kidding, really. But we watched those, and that got her primed for Star Wars. But then out of nowhere, the special editions dropped. And she was involved. She was at some radio station, and they were hosting screenings of all of the special editions. So I got to go with Wendy, and I remember walking out of the screening for A New Hope, and she was saying, man, this is so funny when you see it in a theater with a bunch of people. This is so funny. I didn't realize that, the first time we saw it. I said, well, we should have drank more. But we should have passed around a wine bottle or something. No, but I mean, it does. There is some really solid humor in that film that still stands up to today.
Yeah. All right, Todd, you ready for another one?
Sure.
All right. What Star Wars moment always makes you sad? I'm not saying full-blown cry, but, you know.
The loss of Qui-Gon.
Ooh.
It was very, very pivotal, and just kind of gives you that scene of that feeling of loss, at least for Obi-Wan. It was his father figure, more or less, and then you could see how you could almost postulate that Qui-Gon could have turned to the dark side at that point. With the rage or the pain of losing his father, it could have swung one way or the other.
That Obi-Wan could have just totally lost it and gone full dark side all over Darth Maul, which would have played into the hands of a guy like Darth Sidious, of course.
For sure.
Wow.
You'd have to think that the presence of Qui-Gon Jinn in Anakin Skywalker's life as a proper master may have provided Anakin with the backbone to withstand the lure of the dark side. I just don't think Obi-Wan was up to the task of training. He never asked for it. He wasn't looking for it. He was barely a Jedi Knight himself at the time. And then he gets saddled with this kid who's too old to train. And so, of course, things fell through the cracks. And, of course, that left Anakin a little vulnerable to the dark side. But I don't think that would have happened had Qui-Gon Jinn survived and lived and was able to train Anakin and essentially raise Anakin. So
I think that Qui-Gon would have taken Anakin's dreams and some of the things that were troubling him a lot more seriously. You know, Anakin comes to Qui-Gon, he talks about, to Obi-Wan, talks about the dream. Dreams pass in time, you know. So he's just kind of like brushing it off. Like, you'll get over it. It's just a phase.
Did you eat any spicy food before bed? Anakin, I told you. No late night Taco Bell.
All right, Todd, I got one more for you. Okay.
All right.
So let's say that there's a new Star Wars to be made, and we know that there will always be new Star Wars movies and TV shows to be made, but this is special. This is directed by none other than George Lucas. And he says, you know what? This Todd guy, he is perfect for this role I have in this movie. He's perfect for this part. So he brings you on set. You're filming. George Lucas is there. What would you like to hear the maker say to you after he says cut on your final scene?
Wonderful job. But it's hard to tell. Chances are I would probably end up being a stage manager for the Max Rebo band.
You're the stage manager.
Max would drop a key or something. Yeah.
Now I will say that wonderful is pretty. That's a pretty big, exciting word for George Lucas when he's talking to an actor. I don't know if he is that effusive to say the word wonderful, but
so wonderful.
We'll go with it. We all have our goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, as the stage manager for the Max Rebo band, or even figuring Dan in the modal notes, I would definitely be in my element. So
sure,
the line between acting and being myself, absolutely blurred.
We know those guys could definitely use a stage manager. That's for sure.
Well, Todd, tell us a little bit about Jefferson Starship and where you guys are going next in the world.
Jefferson Starship, legendary band. Members of the band are Kathy Richardson, local from here in Chicago. Chris Smith on keyboards. David Freiberg is the original. Jude Gold on guitar, and Donnie Baldwin on drums. Donnie's with the band in the Starship era, and they're all great people, great musicians. The set list is primed with hits from start to finish. Where are we going next? In a couple of weeks, we're going to take a bus tour of what seems to be the eastern part of the United States. We're going to be out on the road for about 2 weeks. And come back for another couple of weeks, and then and do it all over again. So I think our next show will be in New Jersey. And then
so paging the East Coast, you have a chance to see a legendary rock band in Jefferson Starship. And you guys even perform songs dating all the way back to the Jefferson Airplane too, right?
Right. We do Airplane, we do Jefferson Starship, and we do Starship itself. It's every era of the history of the band has been covered.
So we're going to build the city on rock and roll if we go to a Jefferson Starship show, correct?
Yes, every night we hear that song. And as many people who knock it, there are tons of people in the audience dancing their tail feathers off to that one.
Me and Ann Newman. Me and Ann Newman and Stu Levy from Rancho Obi-Wan, we went to go see the David Nelson Band. And Pete Sears, the bass player from Jefferson Starship back in the day, he is currently in that band. And at one point, I can't remember which musician on stage, it might have been David Nelson himself. He made a joke about the Starship song, We Built This City on Rock and Roll. And, all eyes went to Pete Sears. And Pete just sort of mumbled on the microphone, "Hey, it bought me a house."
Yeah. For sure. Definitely.
So, well, man, that's a number one hit. So, of course, Jefferson Starship is going to pay tribute to that and all the hits from over the years. And it's just a great band. I hope to see you at Kathy Richardson's gig at Fitzgerald's in Berwyn next month in May. I hope I can make it. But
I'm hoping you too.
Yeah, because we love Kathy. She's a Western suburb girl, and she rocks.
She sends her regards.
Oh, great. Yeah, we love Kathy. Yep. So that's Todd Mills, Star Wars superfan, and Jefferson Starship's right-hand man. That's the credential. That they need to make business cards for you that say right-hand man, because you're always there for them, whether it be Jefferson Starship or Max Rebo's band or Figure and Dan in the Modal Nodes. Todd Mills is on the scene and getting the job.
I'll put that on my next guitar pick.
Thank you so much, Todd. This is a pleasure to have you join us here on RFR.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, thanks. Have a good one.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week on Rebel Force Radio. Don't forget, we will be back next week with our live stream Star Wars Celebration Japan review. I think that's what we're calling it, the review. It'll be Saturday, April 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central. Don't forget, we want you to give us a call and react to some of the big news that's going to be coming out of Star Wars Celebration. We speculated what we might hear. We're going to get updates on Mandalorian and Grogu. We're going to get updates on the Star Wars animation. Who knows? Maybe we'll get an official confirmation of the Shaun Levy Star Wars movie. Can you imagine? Maybe we will. Who knows? Anyway,
maybe Kathy Kennedy will tell us when she's actually leaving the role of Lucasfilm president, as rumored.
I doubt it'll happen. Can you imagine the applause that she would get? I don't think she's going to talk about her leaving. She'll get thunderous applause.
People start acting like the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl and they start burning down Chiba. Cars are getting turned over in the streets, storefronts shattered, and fans taking it to the streets.
Well, we know the YouTubers will be all over that.
Celebrate. So. Yeah, well, the YouTubers will be there. Yeah,
they'll be like, well, we're finally right. We're finally right. I told you she was going to get fired.
We told you on our first episode back in 2014 that Kathy Kennedy was on her way out. Well, we were right. Kathy will never give anybody that kind of satisfaction, and she'll probably still be in there in that office in 2026, at least until the Mandalorian film gets released.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, don't forget also Rebel Force Radio, big live show coming up in the fall, September 6th, live at Rancho Obi-Wan. More details coming soon, but definitely keep your eyes open over on the Patreon, Rebel Force Radio on Patreon, where you can get podcasts that you will find nowhere else other than on Patreon. So there's exclusive podcasts, also weekly full show video, and access to the greatest community of Star Wars fans you can find anywhere on the World Wide Web. Best. And as those after shows are coming up, the Rebel Force Radio Andor after shows, if you are a Patreon member, and we know who you are, we've got the list. You identify yourself as such to Tyler Page, our official call screener, you get first dibs at being on the air with us. So we take your calls first if you're a Patreon supporter, and so many more benefits. Check it out at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. And please watch us on YouTube as these after shows start getting closer. You're going to want to subscribe, and you're going to want to get those notifications on when we're going live with our after shows. Those reminders are really helpful. So please subscribe, please like, please comment on our YouTube videos over at youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. Follow us on all of the socials. We're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on all the other ones that nobody nobody cares about. We're also on the official Rebel Force Radio website. Yeah,
we're ripping it up on MySpace, my man.
Yeah, it's just us and
ripping
Tom.
It up.
Just Rebel Force Radio.
He's our biggest fan. How'd you know?
I know. He was the first one to like us. And the website, rebelforceradio.com. But if you want to support us here at Rebel Force Radio, the best way to do that is to do what you're doing right now, which is just listen to the show. Listen to the show. Refer your friends to Rebel Force Radio. The Star Wars friend in your life could be someone at the office, could be someone at school. Who knows who it is? But make sure they've heard of Rebel Force Radio. Tell them about us, and we appreciate all of the love, all of the referrals, all the support so much. Thank you all. You're the absolute best Star Wars fans anywhere in the galaxy. We'll see you next time. Next week. Oh, by the way, if your podcatcher of choice allows you to leave a review, we love to have the reviews. They help us out a lot. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
And with that, we'll say goodbye until our big Star Wars Celebration Japan review live Saturday, April 19th at 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be happening. We'll see you next time. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
And I'm jimmymac.com/myspace.tv.com.org.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Always.
It's a trap!
It's a trap!
It's a trap!
It's a trap!
It's a trap!